Black cleaner's genius son. Fixed a 100-megawatt disaster in seconds. The CEO's response. Left. Everyone stunned in a towering skyscraper where prestige was currency and every floor smelled faintly of power, a silent crisis was unfolding. The company, one of the world's most influential tech giants, was facing a $100 million disaster. Their entire operation, from international transactions to client communications, had been paralyzed by a system failure so severe that even their most seasoned engineers were at a loss. The boardroom buzzed with desperation. No one could have guessed that the solution would come from the son of a black cleaner, a young man most executives had never even noticed. Daniel Carter was 21, with sharp eyes that seemed to take in every detail and a quiet confidence that often made people underestimate him. He was visiting his mother, Angela, who had worked as a cleaner in this very building for over 2 decades. Angela's hands bore the marks of years spent scrubbing the marble floors where billion-dollar deals were signed, yet her presence was invisible to the corporate elite. That afternoon, Daniel waited for her near the service corridor, his laptop bag slung over one shoulder, unaware that fate was about to pull him into the company's biggest crisis. From where he stood, he could see the tension in the air. Suited executives hurried past with clipped conversations, engineers whispered urgently in corners, and security guards paced outside the main server room. He caught fragments of their words: critical system failure, client data loss, hundreds of millions. And curiosity pulled him closer. The building's unspoken rules were clear. Staff, like his mother, stayed in the background. But Daniel wasn't the kind to watch a problem he understood go unsolved. The company's flagship software had suffered a catastrophic glitch. In simple terms, it had locked out every user, corrupted key files, and halted operations worldwide. Engineers had been working for 48 hours straight, throwing every fix they knew at it, but nothing stuck. The CEO, a man with an aura of unshakable authority, had made it clear that failure was not an option. Yet with every passing hour, losses mounted, and the weight of panic pressed down on everyone. Daniel's mind raced. In one of his side projects, he had run into a similar bug, a rare conflict in data indexing that could be reset with a particular sequence of code. He stepped closer to the cluster of engineers, politely offering, "I think I might know what's causing this." At first, they barely looked at him. One man offered a tight smile and turned back to his screen. Another, irritated, muttered that they didn't have time for outside suggestions. The implication was clear. A cleaner's son had no place in this conversation. But Daniel didn't back down. He explained what he suspected in concise, confident terms, throwing in just enough technical detail to make them pause. Finally, one of the younger engineers, exhausted and out of options, glanced toward the CEO and said, "We've tried everything else. Let's let him look." The CEO's eyes narrowed, his expression unreadable, but he gave a small nod. Daniel was handed a spare workstation. The room fell into a tense silence as he began typing. His fingers moved with practiced speed, navigating lines of code like a pianist playing a well-rehearsed concerto. Executives exchanged doubtful glances. Somewhere behind him, his mother stood in the doorway, half hidden, watching her son with a mixture of pride and apprehension. And then, less than 30 seconds later, it happened. The frozen monitors flickered back to life. Systems reconnected. Data flowed again, restored in perfect order. Notifications poured in, clients confirming that their operations were back online, transactions resuming in real time. The engineers stared in disbelief. A few broke into stunned laughter. Someone even clapped. The crisis that had cost the company millions in the past 48 hours had just been erased in under a minute by someone they'd never even considered part of their team. Daniel leaned back, relief washing over him. In that moment, he expected at least a handshake, a thank you, some acknowledgement from the man at the head of the table. Instead, the CEO stood slowly, his gaze fixed on Daniel. When he finally spoke, His voice was calm but cold. "Good work, team," he said, deliberately looking past Daniel to the lead engineer. "I knew you'd pull through." The words hit harder than Daniel expected. Around the room, people shifted uncomfortably. They had all seen what happened, but in a place where image was everything, it seemed easier to pretend the solution had come from within the official hierarchy. Daniel said nothing. He simply shut down the workstation and stepped back. His mother met him in the hall, her eyes glistening, not with disappointment, but with unshakable pride. "You know what you did," she whispered. "That's enough." News of the moment spread quietly through the building. A few employees stopped Daniel to thank him in hushed tones, aware that speaking too loudly might cost them. Others looked at him with newfound respect, though none dared challenge the CEO's version of events. Angela returned to her work that evening, moving from floor to floor, but now every sweep of her mop felt lighter. Her son had proven himself, not to the company, but to himself and to her. In the days that followed, Daniel reflected on the experience. He realized that brilliance doesn't always come from the corner office or the prestigious resume. Sometimes it comes from places no one is looking, because bias and social class have blinded people to the possibility. That day, the company's leadership had chosen to protect their own narrative over the truth. But Daniel knew the truth, and so did his mother. Walking out of the building, he glanced back one last time at the gleaming windows. He didn't need their recognition to know his worth. What mattered was that when the moment came, he stepped up and delivered. As the city lights shimmered around him, one thought stayed in his mind, a question that still burns for anyone willing to answer it. How many world-changing ideas have been ignored, dismissed, or stolen simply because they came from the wrong person?